new to CM, this would be their first year entering. Okay, only one, okay. Well, the basic thing that I want to tell you is that you can get all your information from your CM chair. Are you the CM chair?
I'm the CM chair.
Okay. As far as getting online and registering your students. The one thing I do want to point out and remind you is if you're registering a new student, check to see if that student has ever been in CM before with another teacher, particularly if it's a transfer student or something like that. You don't want to register the student as a new student if the student has been in CM before. You want to find the original records. So there's only one record of that student. It's called a change of teacher. So at that point, you go through your CM branch chair, and she will basically go through the CM council to find the original teacher. Yes?
Suppose the student is already registered in one instrument but starting in another instrument new.
If you're starting in another instrument new, that's like a new student.
Okay.
Then they will have a different number because it's like they're a different student. It's a good question.
Where do you find that student's information? I have students come from different teachers.
If you have a student that comes from a different teacher, it's not something you can do yourself online. You have to go through your branch chair, and she will go through the CM council. There used to be a form that you filled out, but I think the simplest way now, and there actually is a form, but I think the simplest way is to go through your CM branch chair. And you provide the name of the previous teacher, and basically they will find the file. And they will actually put the file in your, I think it's on your teacher page or something like that. When you go to enroll a teacher, enroll a student, it's usually new student or re-enroll a student. So, or find an existing student. I think it's find the existing students is what you end up doing, but you can't find that existing student until they've set that up for you and got that student available for you. I'm talking to teachers. One of the other reminders is be sure to refer to the CM syllabus, especially the first couple of chapters that explain the basics and all the procedures. And there's also a document called the CM policies and procedures. And if you go online, you log in, and on the left you'll see a link that says CM resources. If you click on that, some documents pop up, they're links. The very first one is the current policy and procedures. It's about 30 pages. I usually just download that, I save it to my computer, so I actually have it in my computer. Sometimes the computer works. And then I can pull it up. I was going to print it out, and I thought, no, it's 30 pages. I'm not going to waste the paper, because you can always access it from the computer. And then, of course, another resource is your CM branch chair. You can always ask her for questions. So I printed out my script that goes with it.
Oh, okay, you can follow that.
Track of where I am. It doesn't have any of the slides or anything. But one of the things that we were going to do, unfortunately we're not going to be able to do, people have wanted to hear samples of the ear training. So I actually had some of those, and they were in there. And I was going to do those at the end of the session. If you want to hear a sample of the ear training for either the piano or the voice or the strings, I had some of those.
I just deleted those off my computer last week too. I had them on my computer from last year, so they're gone.
Okay. Okay. Well, like I said, I want to do that at the end, so if people want to hear that, you can play that at the end. Do you have a computer that works that you can play it? Okay. Well, that won't quite have the sound, but does it have a thing where you can plug a speaker in? Because I brought speakers.
Yeah, we can look at it.
Yeah, and we can plug right in. Okay. The other thing that we were going to do, people like to know what the evaluation looks like. So we actually there's a video in here of a sample evaluation. I'll describe it just briefly. The student comes in, and the evaluator, assuming everything goes well, greets the student with a smile and asks them, has them get settled and takes the music. Of course, you want the music all open and ready with measures numbered in the order that like to play. And then the evaluator will usually ask them, would you like to do your sight reading first, or would you like to do your technique first? And so the student has that choice. If they're doing their technique, and by the way, one of the other things is make sure they know the word technique. Sometimes students come in and they know they're playing scales, they know they're playing chord progressions, and when the evaluator asks them to play their technique, they don't know what that is. So make sure that they know that that's what that is. The other thing about the technique is you want to make sure that they have the technique ready to go. They play the entire technique as laid out in the syllabus from beginning to end, because it will be timed. You still get students that will play one scale and they stop and wait, you know, and you don't want to do that. Just have them play scales one after another, chord progressions one after another, go through the entire technique, because it's being timed and the evaluator is busy writing comments about that. In terms of the sight reading, the evaluator will say, you have 30 seconds to look over the sight reading. Begin studying it now. They usually use the word studying it. I always say look it over because it's kind of clear, right? And they will time it, stopwatch. And if students aren't expecting this or rattled, every once in a while they'll start playing. So you want to prepare your students that they have this moment, this time to look over the sight reading first. Levels 8 and above, they have 45 seconds to look it over. And then when that time is up, the evaluator will say, okay, your time is up, now play. So they'll know when the time is up. And then the evaluator will usually confirm, so your first piece is going to be such and such. And, by the way, there's one other thing. Oh, question?
Shadow playing is okay.
Yes, they can shadow play with their fingers on the keys. They shouldn't make a sound. They can count out loud, both in the study and in playing. So those things are okay.
Now, I had one evaluator tell my student not to shadow play.
Well,
This was maybe
that
two
evaluator
years
does
ago.
not need
Oh.
evaluator education.
Oh, okay.
Because they are allowed to shadow play. They just can't
Actually
make
push
sound.
them.
They can't push the keys down. Occasionally, you're allowed to have the student perform an improvisation for the judge. This is an optional thing. It's a way some teachers like to encourage improvisation, so they have their students prepare. I don't know how you prepare improvisation, but they prepare improvisation. Anyway, students are allowed to do an improvisation between 5 seconds to 30 seconds. Well, maybe 60 seconds, up to 60 seconds long. The only thing is, if they're going to do that improvisation, it doesn't replace anything. It's in addition to everything else. This is more ideal if the student's playing shorter pieces, because they still have to make sure their entire evaluation fits within the time limit that's given. But here's the thing, if you do have a student who's doing an improvisation, tell the student to speak up and say, I have an improvisation, because evaluators aren't used to hearing it. And we're having experiences where children come in with an improvisation ready to play and they never get heard, because the evaluator doesn't notice that box checked on the evaluation form and doesn't ask the student. So encourage your student to speak up if they haven't, so they're heard. Then the evaluator will hear the piece one at a time. There they do stop after the first piece. They should stop and wait until the evaluator asks for the second piece, because the evaluator will be making comments. And then at the end, if all goes well, the evaluator will smile and have a few positive words to say and send the child out, and hopefully it's a good experience. So that's the experience of the evaluation. Yes?
Add a quick question for the child playing for strings, so there's not strings that go with the finger on the keyboard.
I would think so. I don't know strings myself, but I would think so. If you could shadow play on the keyboard, I would imagine. Do that. Just don't make sound. So another point to be made is the scales are done in rhythms, and some students aren't quite getting what that means. And by implication, we think maybe some teachers aren't quite getting what that means. So for example, at level 4, I think, in piano anyway, the student is playing 2 octaves and they also play 3 octaves. So the 2 octaves are supposed to be in 8 notes, and the 3 octaves are supposed to be in triplets. So that means when they start the scale, if the beat is about this fast, they should be going bum, bum, bum. And when they get to the end of the 2 octaves and start the 3 octaves, it should change to triplets and sound like bum, 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 bum. The evaluator is listening for that change of tempo. At the upper levels, like level 7, we're doing 3 octaves and then 4 octaves. So the scale should start with triplets, and then when you go to the 4 octaves, go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the evaluator is listening through, because being able to distinguish those rhythms is an important part of the technique. I kind of made the point about, they call it the CM lingo, the word technique, make sure they understand that. The word sight reading, so they prepare them so that they know that they're going to be sight reading, and that's what it's called. The evaluator will say, now we'll do your sight reading. You want the students to know that. And the word repertoire, because the evaluator will probably use the word repertoire. Now we'll listen to your repertoire. So the students should know these expressions. Then we had a You Be the Evaluator thing, which is also on here. It's unfortunate that we don't have that. It's a piece that we pulled off of YouTube, and then played it, and then we had the audio, the video of it, and then the music, so you could kind of be the evaluator and see what that experience is, and we could have some kind of discussion. The significance of the discussion, I think, is in the terminology of their potential results. So, for example, if they're being put in for convention or branch honors or something, the evaluator is going to give them a score, 3, 4, 5. It's on a 5-point scale. And so I just like to point out what some of these numbers mean, because people don't always realize it. 3, well, I'll start from the top. 5 is considered a polished performance, very musical, and mature. 4 is considered well-prepared performance, musical. So what this means is you can hear a performance that sounds basically flawless, and it might get a 4, but it's not going to convention, it won't be a 5. And it's because the evaluators are looking for something more than just an accurate performance. They're looking for what they call something very musical. They're looking for something they call a mature performance. The word polished is the word I like to use. I used to use the word professional, but for some reason they don't like that word, because kids are not professionals, of course. So, but a polished performance is 5, and then of course you have your pluses and minuses. Then the thing to realize about a CM experience, it's like any performance. That performance is just what happened with that student on that day, in that room, on that instrument, with that evaluator. And so things sometimes don't always go the way they're planned. And this is important to keep in mind when we're talking to our students afterwards. If it didn't go quite as well as they had expected, or quite as well as they had planned, or the evaluator had a few more critical comments than the student had expected, that you reinforce to them that this is simply a look at one particular situation, one performance in one place. This is not a picture of their progress. This is not a picture of their whole talent level. This is not a picture of how this student is. It's a means to give kind of a second opinion in a particular situation. And of course, with the comments, it's a means to help teachers get a sense of how this looks to another listener in a particular situation. So this is kind of a way to, I would say, soften the blow if it didn't go quite as well. But that's only one time. And it's not a reflection of who the student is and how they play. So that's, I think, good to keep in mind. The goal of CM is to encourage students to strive for musical excellence and to encourage a life